Hey everyone, I'm just going to quickly go over today the new Asus PA602 ProArt chassis. It is called a gaming chassis, but I can tell you that for most builds, this is actually one of the better cases if you're trying to do something that's also holds a lot of storage, but also has support for large graphics cards and good airflow and an AIO build. Off the top of my head, I'm going to say this is not a water cooling case. I'm going to go into why that is in a moment. But before I go forward, I'm just going to go over the glass real quick. There is a filter and a mesh vent on the glass. You can remove this and clean the filter behind it. This allows for a GPU mounted in the vertical position to breathe better inside the case. You will need to get the Asus or some other vertical stand, but I think you have to most likely use the Asus one to mounted in a vertical position. It does not come with that PCIe bracket. Okay, not the bracket, but the cable. There are two holes above the PSU shroud where it goes, similar to the Hyperion and the Helios. Same situation. All right, so the case only comes in black as of right now. With most ProArt items are black and gold, so I don't believe it would come out in any other color. All right, so let's go over the front real quick. I do have the system on, which is why it's powered. For some of you, this may look very familiar. This may look kind of like a torrent, right? And that's what I kind of thought when I first saw it. But it does have very high airflow. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the front filter. Okay, it's two tabs on each side, and you release. Okay? Once you release, you will see that there's two 200 millimeter fans behind it. These fans are, I believe, 38 millimeters thick, so they provide excellent airflow. And you can see it's pretty much just all air going out. And the filter itself is removable and cleanable. And it actually does say ProArt on it, which is pretty cool. So there's the front of the case. With that said, let me pull it to the side here. I'll show you guys one more thing. If you notice something here that says Smart Filter, this is pretty much an IR filter, an IR sensor in the front right here. If you have dust accumulation, it will light up and notify you that you need to clean the front. Cool thing, I can't tell you how well that works because this system is pretty much just finished, right? But I think that's pretty cool. Moving on to the back of the case, there is this securing mechanism for expansions for the first, I want to say maybe 3 slots. This is pretty much where your GPU would go, and this will allow for installation that is screwless, right? This screws out, clamps in, kind of like what we've seen on, for example, some of the smaller Cooler Master SFX cases. Kind of has the same thing going on. All right, so aside from that, let me just talk about the cooling in this case real quick. It does come with these two 30 millimeter, 200 millimeter fans. I just forgot to mention in the front, there is support for, I believe these holes are for 180 millimeter fans. I don't know why that's there, I guess if you wanted to switch. But these fans push a lot of air and they're very quiet. You get a 140 in the back that matches in design to the front fans. And you'll notice that I'm also using a ProArt AIO. This AIO is Asus's first 420 millimeter AIO. It should be available the same time as this case is. This case is not available yet. We're looking at about next month, end of next month, I believe is the target release date. But it is a 420. The radiator is, I forgot the thickness off the top of my head, guys, but it is slim rad. It's not a thick rad, and it just sits right between here. So you're not going to have anything more than maybe 30 millimeter rad up here if you're doing a 360. If you're doing your own loop in this case for a CPU, you're not going to be able to. I don't think most 420 millimeter rads would fit, honestly, because the end tanks would be so long that you'll be stuck with a 360. It does support 360, but once again, this is all the space for the radiator. Okay, there's a bracket that the fan goes into, and the radiator goes on top of that bracket. So that's all the space you get. So you're pretty much looking at a slim 360 rad. At which point, get the ProArt AIO or get another 420 AIO. This AIO is actually pretty cool. These lights right here, they actually you can set them to show you, they're notched. So like 1 bar, 2 bar, 3 bar, 4 bar, etc. You can set them to show you CPU utilization, CPU temperature, assorted temps, assorted stuff in Armory Crate. Aside from that, you'll notice that there is a wire cover to hide your wires, but that also removes the need for grommets. So there are no grommets in this case. I do feel some of the bottom holes could have used grommets. That would have been nice. What else? Okay, so aside from that, you'll notice that there's a very big GPU support over here. And this support is, it rotates, comes up and down. You'll see I can move it. It folds in if you don't need it, and it folds back out if you do need it. It is helpful. It does support GPUs up to 400 millimeters long, so you can have a super long GPU in there. A couple things. This screen here and this panel, that is not part of the case. That is my own modification. This build will be at CES next year. So if you guys go to the Asus booth, you will be able to see this. I have it playing assorted features, videos, B-roll from Asus for this case and for this AIO. Makes sense, right? This is also using a screen implementation I've talked about before, where you'll notice I'm not connected to the GPU. I'm actually using kind of like a Raspberry Pi Arduino setup, something like that. So it's actually, this screen actually has connected to a board that has its own storage, etc. But it can also pull stats from the motherboard for CPU temp, etc. if desired. So these panels I made myself. It's a black PSU cover, but I made these panels to add on to just even it out a little bit. There's a little bit of an overhang from this plastic cover, which I guess is directed to blow air towards the GPU. I just flattened it out with some panels, added some of the Asus and ProArt gold inlay there, just from design elements, just to spice it up a bit. Because it's a build that's geared towards consumer expectations to be shown at CES, I couldn't exactly go kind of crazy with it, right? So I kind of had to keep it subtle, and this is kind of the result. A couple more things about this case. I just want to talk about on the top here. I laid the system on its back just to show you guys the top. It's a little tall. So you'll notice here you have a switch. This switch will actually handle your fan control. There is a built-in fan control, and it has 3 slots remaining for 3 fans for the AIO, which is perfect. All the other wires are ran for you ahead of time, so it saves you a lot of time on time management. You have auto. This auto is actually just PWM control based off the motherboard. There's a header that connects to your motherboard. And then you have the microphone, 2 USB 2.0s, Type-C, and 3 USB 3.0s. And additionally, you have a lock switch and a reset button. This lock switch, if you press it, it prevents the power button from being depressed. That's extremely helpful. If you have a toddler or your cat jumps on your computer, those are pretty much the use cases. And there's also a cool spot over here where you can fit the motherboard at Wi-Fi antenna. You'll see that I have mine here. And all the Asus motherboards, as far as I'm aware right now, all use a standard antenna that all look the same. So that's a slot where you can slide that, which is pretty cool thought, right? And you can see the radiator, like I said, is at the filter. So this is all the room you get for a rad. It's not very deep. If I stick my ruler into here, backwards. Yeah, well, you're looking at about 30 millimeter. All right, maybe 35. So that's pretty much as thick as you can go. It's a little messy. It's not finalized. I haven't finished all the zip ties and sorted all the wires yet. I've just been mainly focused on getting the system up and running. But you'll see right here that this is actually a cable management box. It actually helps clip all your wires from the top I/O, so you can run it. This is all it pretty much does. It clips things in place. But you'll notice also on the back we have 1, 2, 3, 4 SSD mount positions. You also have the mount positions on the 3.5 drives themselves. So if I take this out, you'll notice that you have SSD mounts on here as well as 3.5, right, for the big tray. So you'll notice that you have 3, I'll put that back later. You have 3 3.5 3.5 drives, and you also have another one that can mount right here, and you can also mount an SSD right here. So technically you can mount 8 SSDs and 4 3.5 drives. That is some serious storage. And that is one of the, I think, top selling parts for this case for folks that do, content, 3D CAD, like anything that takes a lot of storage space. This thing is perfect. So you could technically run this as your storage server on a small VM, for example, maybe in your host OS. You can have it like TrueNAS and still have the drive space for it. But yeah, so that pretty much sums up the case. I think in terms of my impression so far, in terms of the case itself, is that this thing, I have the fan set to 60% max for all the fans. And even under load, temps are great, and this thing is dead silent. It is dead silent. I do not hear this thing at all. Even running Cinebench, I don't hear it. So that's pretty cool. I would definitely recommend it for folks looking for a case that has a lot of storage, but not too big. It's actually not that big of a case. So yeah, I don't know the price point, obviously, but it's considering it's mostly, I think the only thing aluminum is the two handlebars, which is supposed to support, I think, up to like 200 pounds or something like that. Outside the handlebars, everything's kind of plastic. So I don't expect the price point to be too high. But that's just me guessing. Most of it is just steel and plastic. So with that said, thanks for watching. Stay safe. Take care.